It's 3 a.m. and you're staring at the ceiling. Your phone says you should be asleep. Your body disagrees. You start to panic a little. Something must be wrong with you. But the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a disorder. It was Tuesday. Your ancestors didn't sleep the way you think they did. They didn't collapse at 10 p.m. and vanish until dawn in one long, unbroken block. They slept in two pieces: a first sleep, a gap of wakefulness in the dark, then a second sleep. And in that gap, something happened that modern life has almost completely erased. Let's go back. Not to a specific century, but to a rhythm. A rhythm your body still remembers, even if your calendar doesn't. Historian A. Roger Ekirch spent over a decade combing through diaries, court records, medical texts, and literature from pre-industrial Europe, hunting for a pattern nobody had noticed before. He found the same phrase again and again in language after language. First sleep. Second sleep. People would lie down not long after dark, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, then wake. Not from insomnia, not from stress, from biology, doing exactly what it was designed to do. This waking hour had a name once: the watch. And it wasn't wasted. People prayed. They talked quietly with a spouse in the dark. They tended a low fire, added another log, watched it catch. Some had sex. Some got up and visited a neighbor a few houses down, because everyone else was awake at the same hour too. Some simply lay in the dark and thought, the way you think right before falling asleep, except now it happened twice a night instead of once, with a stretch of darkness in between to hold the thought. Why would a body do this? Think about a world with no electric light. The sun sets. Darkness stretches out for 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours, depending on the season and the latitude. No single sleep cycle fills that much time. Your body wasn't built to sleep for 12 hours straight. It was built to rest, surface, rest again, the way it still tries to now, before you override it with an alarm clock and a fixed idea of what a full night should look like. Sleep researcher Thomas Wehr tested this directly, and the result still surprises people who hear it for the first time. In the 1990s, he placed volunteers in a room with no artificial light for 14 hours a night, mimicking a long pre-industrial winter. Within weeks, something shifted. Subjects stopped sleeping in one block. They split into 2 sleeps, with an hour or 2 of quiet wakefulness in between. Nobody taught them to do this. Nobody suggested it. Their bodies simply remembered a pattern that modern light had buried. But maybe you're thinking, that's medieval Europe. That's one culture, one era, one set of candlelit habits. Fair point. So look further back, further away, at people whose lives today look the most like our ancient default. Hunter-gatherers who still live largely without electricity. Neuroscientist Jerome Siegel and his team studied 3 such groups in detail: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Simene of Bolivia. No clocks, no screens, no caffeine schedules dictating when energy should appear or disappear. And the findings surprised almost everyone, including the researchers who ran the study. These groups didn't sleep in one long, uninterrupted stretch either. They also woke in the night, sometimes briefly, sometimes for longer. They also rested for shorter, looser windows than the rigid 8-hour block you've been told is the gold standard of health. Here's the part that should really stop you. None of these groups reported insomnia. Not one. Researchers went looking for the word, or something close to it, in their languages and complaints. It wasn't there. The condition doesn't exist in their vocabulary because broken sleep wasn't broken to them. It was just sleep, doing what sleep has always done before anyone decided it needed fixing. Consider what this means for how you picture the past. You've probably imagined ancient nights as one long, dreamless void, broken only by nightmares or the occasional predator sound outside a cave, but that image is backwards. The night wasn't empty, it was doubled. It had a shape, a first descent into sleep, a rise back toward the surface of waking, a pause, and then a second descent, deeper and often more vivid than the first. Ekirch found that people frequently described their most memorable dreams as happening during that second sleep, when the mind had already been warmed up by hours of rest and a stretch of quiet, undistracted darkness in between. Some physicians of the era even recommended the watch as the best time for study or reflection, believing the mind was clearer then than at any other point in the day. And it wasn't only individual habit. It shaped entire households. Ekirch describes families structuring their homes and even their furniture around the expectation of a midnight waking, with fires kept low but not out, and chamber pots and water kept within reach precisely because everyone assumed they'd be needed partway through the night. The watch wasn't hidden or embarrassing. It was scheduled into life the way a lunch break is scheduled into yours. So somewhere between the campfire and your bedroom, something changed. Not your biology, your environment. Picture the shift happening. Slowly, then all at once. Candles, then gas lamps, then electric bulbs strung through entire cities. Factories that didn't care what time the sun went down, because now work could continue after dark too. Ekirch traces the disappearance of first and second sleep to roughly the late 1800s, right alongside the spread of artificial light into ordinary homes. As nights got brighter, they also got shorter in a strange, almost paradoxical way. People pushed bedtime later and later, trying to cram 2 natural sleeps into one squeezed block, because now there was somewhere to be in the morning. A shift, a schedule, a factory whistle that didn't care about your ancestors' rhythm or your own. By the time your grandparents were young, segmented sleep wasn't just gone. It was forgotten completely, erased so thoroughly that doctors began treating its return as a symptom rather than a memory. So forgotten that when your body tries to do it now, waking at 3 a.m. for no obvious reason, you don't recognize it as ancient. You recognize it as a problem. You reach for your phone to check the time, and the glow of that screen becomes the first thing your ancestors never had to deal with in their version of this exact moment. That's the twist worth sitting with. The thing you've been told to fix might be the most natural thing your body still knows how to do. Now, this doesn't mean lying awake at 3 a.m. scrolling your phone is good for you. It isn't. And here's the honest reason why. Screens flood your eyes with blue light that suppresses melatonin, the hormone that tells your brain it's nighttime and safe to rest. That part actually is a modern problem, not an ancient one. Your ancestors' waking hour happened in near total darkness, which is exactly why it didn't wreck their next day. Darkness let their melatonin keep flowing, easing them gently back toward the second sleep. Light was the one variable they simply didn't have. You have it in your pocket, at full brightness, at 3 a.m., undoing the very thing your body is trying to do. So what should you actually do, lying there at 3 a.m., heart doing that faint anxious flutter, mind already drafting tomorrow's to-do list? Try not fighting it. Ekirch's research suggests the watch was never treated as a crisis, and that framing alone changes the experience. It was treated as ordinary time, just quieter than the rest. No phone, no clock watching, no mental math about how many hours of sleep you supposedly have left before disaster strikes in the morning. Just darkness and the strange, old permission to be awake inside it without judgment. There's a modern mirror here too, and it's worth pausing on. Chronobiologist Till Renneberg has spent years arguing that so-called insomnia is sometimes just a mismatch between your natural rhythm and your social schedule, a condition he calls social jet lag. You're not broken. You're occasionally out of sync with a clock that was invented for factories, not for bodies, and your nervous system is still quietly negotiating with that mismatch every single night. Think about how much of your daily panic around sleep comes down to a single number: 8 hours. An unbroken 8 hours, glowing on a wellness app, judging you every morning like a scoreboard you never agreed to play on. But that number is a fairly recent invention, propped up by industrial schedules and marketing more than by biology itself. Your great-great-grandparents would have found the idea of one uninterrupted 8-hour block a little strange, maybe even unnatural. 2 blocks sleep, with a quiet hour of thought in between, was simply how nights worked, for almost everyone, for almost all of history. And this pressure doesn't just live in wellness apps, it lives in how casually people discuss it. "I slept terribly, I was up at 3 a.m. for like an hour," said with the same tone as confessing a failure, a lapse in discipline, something to apologize for at breakfast. Compare that to how a farmer 300 years ago might have described the exact same night. He wouldn't have described it at all because there would have been nothing unusual to report. The watch simply happened, the way digestion happens, the way breathing happens. Nobody wrote home to say, I breathed normally last night. Only once the pattern became rare did it start to feel like something worth explaining, worth medicating, worth losing sleep over in an entirely new, more anxious sense. So the next time you wake at 3 a.m., here's a different question to ask instead of, what's wrong with me? What if nothing is wrong with you at all? What if your body just did something it has done for 100,000 years? Something written into it long before clocks, long before light bulbs, long before anyone decided a single sleep was the only correct kind? What if the only unfamiliar part of the whole experience is that nobody ever warned you it was normal? Maybe you don't reach for your phone this time. Maybe you just lie there, the way people once lay by a dying fire, half awake, half dreaming, letting the dark do what it has always done, waiting patiently for the second sleep to come find them. It's 3 a.m. again. You're staring at the ceiling, but this time you're not panicking. You're remembering.